Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to another video. It's that time of the week again. It is back after what has been a lengthy and long international break. Club football returns, and that can only mean one thing: the return of the Premier League predictions video, in which I go through each and every single game that's coming up in a new round of Premier League fixtures to come up this weekend. Talk about them, and of course give my predictions on how I think the outcomes will go. We are on to game week 9 now of the brand new season. And this round of fixtures is throwing up a couple of big games. A couple of big derbies in this one. A couple of big games overall elsewhere, aside from the derbies as well. It is another exciting round of Premier League fixtures for us to sink our teeth into this weekend. Before we go any further though, I would like to remind you, please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both of them is always and very greatly appreciated. And also for you lot to get involved in the comment section. I'm sure I have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions. But most of all, of course, with this being a predictions video, we need your predictions down below in that comment section, because I'm sure they'll make it interesting and great reading. So do get involved down there. But without further ado, let's get on with the predictions. We're starting off with Saturday's lunchtime kickoff, and what a way to kick things back off again in the Premier League than a Merseyside Derby. Liverpool against Everton at Anfield. Huge game this one. Huge game this one. That will obviously be, I'm sure, a feisty encounter and an interesting encounter at that as well. Can I just say first and foremost, before we start anything else, under any normal circumstances, this would be my main event of the week. And personally, for me, obviously, it is being a Liverpool fan. But I had to go with, obviously, what's coming up in the main event of this weekend. So I will say that right off the bat. I'll also say this: another 12:30 kickoff for Liverpool after the international break, and again it's going to happen in a few weeks' time after the November international break when Liverpool take on Manchester City. For me, ridiculous. That will make it 14 times eventually that Liverpool will have had 12:30 kickoffs. Let me just say, there's something seriously wrong with that. And I genuinely believe that the FA are trying to get an early payday from Jurgen Klopp, because they know that if they push his buttons long enough, he's going to say something in a press conference that will really annoy them and be like, right, we're going to fine you, we're going to take that money and we're going to do whatever the hell we do with it. Just saying, I find it a bit weird that Liverpool are once again being put under the 12:30 bracket once again. But I digress. Liverpool looking to get back to winning ways. They've not won in their past couple of games, drawing to Brighton last time out before the international break, whilst Everton picked up a big 3 points against Bournemouth in a 3-0 victory for the Toffees. So they come into this game with a little bit of momentum on their side. Look, 12:30 kickoffs have never been that great for Liverpool, but I would imagine in a Merseyside derby at home at Anfield, the crowd's going to be up for it. The crowd is going to be electric, and the players should be up for this as well. Big absentee in obviously Andrew Robertson. It's going to be interesting to see if the South American players in Liverpool will obviously start, because there's always a bit of guessing as to whether or not they're going to be okay after obviously travelling huge miles this week. But they should be okay, you would imagine. Interesting to see what kind of side Jurgen Klopp picks. Interesting to see how Sean Dyche lines up against the Liverpool side, how he decides to play. I imagine it's going to be allowing Liverpool to have possession, trying to frustrate them wherever possible, be physical with them, and try and obviously play direct on the counter-attack and try and get some joy on that counter-attack, or through a set piece or something along those lines. For Liverpool, they can't be sucked into Everton's game. They need to play their own game, and with that frightening free up front that they tend to have, and with the frightening pace and power and obviously ability they have on the counter-attack, they will need to be at their very best in this game. This could be a potential banana skin for Liverpool if they're not careful. Of course, it is a Merseyside derby. At the end of the day, Liverpool do go into it as heavy favourites, and of course they should. But Everton normally turn up in these games because this is basically, with all due respect, their cup final season after season. So with that being said, as much as it will be tough for Liverpool, I still think Liverpool will get the job done, especially with them being at home, which is why I'm going for a 2-0 win in favour of Jurgen Klopp's side. Next up, we're moving on to the 3 o'clockers, and we have got a clash at the Vitality Stadium first up between Bournemouth and Wolves. Bournemouth, of course, come into this game off the back of a defeat to Everton, losing by 3-0 before the international break. whilst Wolves managed to pick up a point in a Midlands clash against Aston Villa last time out. Big game this one. Bournemouth obviously still without a win this season. They are still winless so far this campaign, and the pressure, you would imagine, is certainly growing on their new manager, so that could be interesting if obviously things don't go to plan here. Wolves, hit and miss so far this season. You never really know what you're going to get from this Wolves side, but hopefully with 4 points in the last 2 games under their belts, and obviously with them being big points as well against teams that you wouldn't necessarily have thought that Wolves might have got anything out of, in the forms of Manchester City and Aston Villa, of course, it is certainly possible that Wolves may start to go on a bit of a run here, and maybe they will fancy their chances against the Bournemouth side, who, like I say, are without a win so far this season. Play some good football at times, but can't stick the ball into the back of the net, and defensively, they are very, very, very leaky, to say the least. Whilst I think Wolves go into this as the favourites, and whilst I think that Wolves probably will go on and get the win, I just think Bournemouth may have something about them. The home advantage, maybe just to get a point at the very least in this game. So, whilst I would be leaning more towards a Wolves win, I think Bournemouth may sneak a point, and that's why I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw come the end of the game. Next, we move on to Brentford against Burnley. Thomas Frank versus Vincent Kompany. Big clash for your 3 o'clock viewing, or lack of viewing if you got the 3 o'clock blackout. Big test this one. Both sides not been great so far this season. Both sides coming into this game off the back of defeats. Brentford lost to Manchester United last time out in a huge collapse by Thomas Frank's side, whilst Burnley, of course, lost by 4-1 against Chelsea. Brentford haven't been that good this season. It started off okay, but then for the past few results, you can clearly see that they lack sort of a presence of Ivan Toney up front. We did a question how much that they would miss him, and it seemed to be okay for a little while, but it obviously seemingly has affected them. I imagine there's other things as well that has affected them. They play some good stuff at times, the Brentford, but they haven't got a cool, ice-cold finisher up front to put away the chances that they create. And so, yeah, you can kind of tell that they are missing Ivan Toney in certain respects. If they had a striker like him up front, you could probably say that Brentford might be a bit further along and may have gotten more points this season, but that obviously isn't the case. As for Burnley, they suffer with a little bit of the same thing. They play some nice stuff from time to time. Their defence is a bit more leakier, I guess you could say, but they just don't have a clinical enough striker to put the ball into the back of the net on a consistent enough occasion than they would like. Big game for both sides. Both sides will fancy their chances, of course, but I'm going to give the edge to Brentford being at home, and I'm going to say that Thomas Frank's side come out of this one as 2-1 winners. Next up, a huge game at the Etihad Stadium. Manchester City are taking on Brighton. This one could be a cracker. This one could be an absolute banger of a game between two sides that we know will like to get the ball down and play some good football. Obviously, the stakes are raised with how City have done in their past couple of games. They are without a win in the Premier League in their past couple of occasions. They have suffered back-to-back defeats in the league, so that is a rarity for Pep Guardiola. Obviously, after losing 1-0 to Arsenal before the international break. Brighton, of course, come into this game off the back of a 2-2 draw with Liverpool, so, you know, the standard of opposition doesn't get any easier for the Seagulls, but they'll fancy their chances. Etihad, City, it's normally a recipe and a combination that normally results in City winning, but I think Brighton will definitely fancy their chances of getting something from this game if they play their usual football. For City, the good news is Rodri's back. They have certainly missed him these past couple of games, and they'll be hoping that he can provide that midfield with some stability going forward, and hopefully that will obviously give them a platform to build upon for their attacks going forward, and hopefully, or for them, hopefully, the likes of Julian Alvarez and Erling Haaland in particular will have found their shooting boots to obviously finish off the chances that they create. For Brighton, if they can cut out individual errors and individual mistakes, particularly from a defensive point of view, they will have a good opportunity at beating Manchester City in this game, I feel. They play some great stuff. They can obviously penetrate that Manchester City back line. It's not invincible, this City back line, as proven by Wolves, as proven by Arsenal. it'll be interesting to see how they approach this game. For me, City at the Etihad should represent a City win all day long. But in this one, I'm going to give Brighton a glimmer of hope here. And I'm going to say that this game will end in a draw. I just think there's something about this City side that we always say every year. And I'm not just saying it this season to be like going along with the crowd. I just think there's something with City this year that it's not quite right for right now. But I would still back that Pep Guardiola eventually gets it right in the end. And obviously they go on to shift through the gears as the season progresses, they usually do. But for right now though, I can see them dropping a few more points. And that's why I'm going to go for a draw. Again, it's probably not the popular result because probably City will be winning this game, but I think Brighton can get something from this game. I'm going to go for a draw, and I'm going to say that this game will end 2-2 from the final whistle. Next up, big clash at St James's Park as Eddie Howe takes on Roy Hodgson as Newcastle take on Crystal Palace. Both of these sides coming into this game off the back of draws, with Newcastle drawing 2-2 with West Ham for the international break, whilst Palace drew 0-0 with Nottingham Forest. Interesting one, this one. Big clash, interesting one. Both these sides going along about their business pretty well. Both sides probably could be looking at certain games and be saying that they should have done better in. Maybe they could have got more points accumulated this season already had they done better in certain other games. But both these sides going along pretty well. Newcastle not as devastating as they were last campaign so far, in my opinion, and you know, although the likes of Alexander Isak are warming up, so to speak, they do leak a few chances and leak a few goals at times that obviously Palace can maybe take advantage of. But they are coming up against a difficult Palace side, and they are awkward because they have one of the best defensive records in the league so far this season, only conceded 7 goals. So it'll be a tough situation for Newcastle to break them down, I would imagine. But as well as that, Palace don't really score that many goals. Palace have only scored 7 goals this season, which I think outside of the bottom 4, the current bottom 4, is the worst scoring record to have so far this campaign. So this one could be a very interesting game for those kinds of reasons. I'm expecting maybe a high scoring game, maybe not. But in saying that, I do think both sides will get a goal. I do think this one could go either way. I think Palace could always have the possibility to be awkward and thorns in the opposition side to anybody, whilst Newcastle could obviously blitz Palace away. They just had that potential about both of these sides. A draw then seemingly does seem fair, but I'm going to do the slight edge to Newcastle with them being at home, and I'm going to say that this game will end 2-1 in favour of the Magpies. Next up, clash at the City Ground as Nottingham Forest take on Luton Town. Big game this one, could already be seen as a bit of a relegation 6 points for both of these sides, of course, as both try and keep their heads above water, so to speak, of the relegation zone. You've got Nottingham Forest, who last time out drew 0-0 with Crystal Palace. You've got a Luton Town side, who lost 1-0 to Tottenham last time out. But it wasn't through lack of trying. They simply just couldn't put the ball into the back of the net. They had a few opportunities to do so, none taken. I still don't understand how Adebayo missed that brilliant golden opportunity when it seemingly seemed harder to miss in that Tottenham game. You'll know which one I'm talking about, of course. The one where he seemingly just stands on the ball or sits on the ball or whatever it was. But at the same time, it does represent a big opportunity for Luton Town this. This is obviously a more favourable game for them, with all due respect to Nottingham Forest. But at the same time, we know that Forest can be difficult to beat at home, as has been proven across their time in the Premier League. I would imagine Forest win this game. I wouldn't put it past Luton to get a draw. I wouldn't put it past Luton to get something from this game. But in saying that, I'm going to go with Forest. I'm going to go with Forest only just. And I'm going to say that Steve Cooper's side win this game by 1-0. Jumping ahead a little bit to Saturday night's encounter between Sheffield United and Manchester United at 8 o'clock for your Saturday night viewing. It's at Bramall Lane, and obviously this is going to be a big game because Sheffield United going into this game still winless so far this season. They, last time out, lost to Fulham by 3-1, whilst Manchester United, of course, completed a phenomenal injury time comeback through the Scottish Warrior Scott McTominay to obviously bounce back and beat Brentford by 2-1 very late on, creating history in that moment. Big 3 points for Erik ten Hag, big 3 points for Manchester United, and now they go on to face a Sheffield United side who, like I say, are winless so far this season. This represents a big opportunity for Manchester United to get back-to-back wins. I obviously hope that Sheffield United get a good result in this game, but I don't see it happening. I think this is going to be a big game for Man United to really get a few goals in. I think Rasmus Højlund is going to be a big player to watch this weekend. So maybe if you're a fantasy football manager, maybe it's worth considering having him in your side for this weekend. I honestly, as much as I want to see Sheffield United pick up a big win here, or at least get a point in this game, I unfortunately can't see anything other than a Manchester United win. So United to win this game for your Saturday night viewing. I'm going to go 3-1 to Erik ten Hag's side. Sunday, I only see one game this week, and that is coming from Villa Park, where Aston Villa will take on West Ham. Big game for both of these sides, of course. Both sides coming into this game with the back of draws. Villa drew 1-1 with Wolves last week, whilst West Ham drew 2-2 with Newcastle United, of course. Big game. Both these sides have had very good starts to the season. They've obviously had a few bumps in the road along the way, but for the most part, they've actually started off pretty well. Going to be an interesting clash, this one. West Ham obviously play a more direct style of play. Aston Villa, being the home side, will probably want to get the ball down and play some good football. So it could be a very interesting clash and contradiction of styles of play. Obviously, both have informed players right now. Ollie Watkins, fresh off of obviously England duty this week, and Jared Bowen as well, fresh off England duty this week, have both been excellent to start the season off for both of these clubs. So it will be interesting to see how both of them players get on in this game, and whether or not they'll be the difference makers in this game. Intriguing game, intriguing clash. I'm going to go with a draw though. I'm going to call it down the middle, and I'm going to say that this game will end 2-2 come the final whistle, with both players, like I say, in Ollie Watkins and Jared Bowen, getting on the score sheet. The penultimate game on this list sees a London derby of sorts as Tottenham take on Fulham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Of course, big game this one, not just because it's necessarily a London derby, but also because obviously Tottenham go into this game at the time of recording top of the table. Now, whether of course they'll remain there or not this weekend, whether it's through their own doing or whether it's obviously through other teams doing, obviously remains to be seen. They probably won't be top of the table by the time kickoff comes around 8 o'clock on Monday night. But they could still maybe retain their place if obviously results go in their favour or they win this game. Tottenham are top of the table. Tottenham are unbeaten so far this season. No one expected that to happen in the second international break, or maybe at any point of this season. So fair play to Tottenham for that. They are high flying right now and coming off the back of a 1-0 victory over Luton Town before obviously the international break occurred. Whilst Fulham, of course, they come into this game off the back of a win themselves. They beat Sheffield United by 3-1, and whilst it hasn't exactly been the start to the season that they would have hoped for, it's been a bit hit and miss, had a few bumps in the road, that kind of thing, they've been okay so far, and they are still a team to not take for granted. They are still a team not to be underestimated by any stretch of the imagination. What they may lack in terms of consistent goal scoring, but they may still be tricky to break down. They may still be tricky and cause some food for thought on the counter-attack or from set pieces. It'll be interesting to see how this Fulham side sets up here. For Postecoglou's side, like I say, the pressure only increases with each passing game right now, and whilst they're obviously not showing any signs of that pressure telling on the players or on the club, you've got to imagine that sooner rather than later it will start to pick up on them, and then it's about how they handle that. It's about how they handle that pressure. It's about how they maybe handle their first defeat going forward. We'll obviously have to wait and see on that, but I don't necessarily see that defeat coming this weekend. Whilst I think Fulham could pose tough opposition for Spurs, I still think Spurs have enough about them to get the job done, and that is why I am going to go for a 2-0 victory in favour of Spurs. 2-0 to the Spurs. And finally, in what I believe to be the biggest game of this round of fixtures, the main event of this Premier League weekend coming up. It is at Stamford Bridge. It is Chelsea taking on Arsenal. Huge game, huge rivalry, a big London derby in prospect for our Saturday evening viewing at 5:30. Cannot wait for this one. This one should be an exciting clash indeed. You've got a Chelsea side that are coming into this game on the back of a bit of a momentum run right now. They had a poor start to the season, but in the past few weeks they picked up some good results. Their last one coming up against Burnley by 4-1, in which the Blues were victorious. Whilst Arsenal themselves are coming into this game off the back of a huge boost for them. They beat Pep Guardiola's Manchester City by 1-0 just before the international break. And of course that is a massive mental block that has been overcome by Mikel Arteta's side. A huge boost in mentality and confidence that I'm sure they'll take with them going forward for the remainder of the season. But it all starts with Chelsea. It all starts with a fierce rivalry and a fierce game in prospect on Saturday night, I'm sure. And like I say, I cannot wait to watch this game unfold before our very eyes. Huge game, huge prospect. For Chelsea, they will obviously fancy their chances. The past couple of results will obviously have boosted their confidence going into this game, and I'm already seeing a few Chelsea fans perk up a little bit in terms of how they think that they may actually overcome Arsenal and shock Arsenal on Saturday night. For me, I'm not entirely convinced. Like I say, I've seen Chelsea a lot this season. They play some good stuff at times, but they can't stick the ball into the back of the net. That's their biggest problem. And that opinion hasn't swayed me by the fact that they put 4 against Burnley. They scored 2 against an inconsistent Fulham side. That opinion of me hasn't changed. This is going to be this is the start to a huge run for Chelsea, in which they've got some extremely tough fixtures. And this is really where it's going to be crunch time for Mauricio Pochettino and Chelsea, I think. Because as much as they should give him a chance, and as much as they should be patient with him, we know that Chelsea fans and the Chelsea board aren't exactly the most patient out there. So it's going to be a big start to a huge run and a big crucial run for Chelsea, this one, which we'll obviously have to wait and see how it unfolds. Starting with Arsenal, obviously if Arsenal aren't careful, this could be a big banana skin for them. I still think they go into this game the favourites, despite the fact that they're away from home. The issue that I have with Arsenal is I'm not entirely confident about their attacking output. Eddie Nketiah still doesn't fill me with much hope and chance going forward. They come up against a Chelsea side who are pretty solid defensively. They come up against a Arsenal side that are solid themselves. I think there's more control about Arsenal this season, so it'll be an interesting match that unfolds. And it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal approach this. Did they try and go all-out attack? Did they try and go how they did against Manchester City? Did they try and show Chelsea a bit more respect than what maybe some of their fans are giving them? It'll be interesting to see how Arsenal approach this, but it will be also interesting to see how Chelsea approach this as well. In terms of obviously coming up against an Arsenal side who are tough defensively, best defence in the league, and obviously are coming into this game off the back of a huge victory themselves against Manchester City. This one should be a quality game of football that I am looking forward to. But I am going to have to go with Arsenal. As much as I maybe can see Chelsea getting a draw in this game if they are solid defensively, I think I'm going to have to give the edge to Arsenal. And like I say, they may not score a ton of goals either of these sides, or may not have, should I say, clinical finishes, should I say, either of these sides is what I more should say. I think Arsenal will have enough firepower to get them across the finish line through the likes of Bukayo Saka and obviously a returning Gabriel Martinelli, who made a big return of huge and seismic impact when obviously he scored the winning goal against Manchester City. That is why I'm going to say that this game will end 2-1 in favour of the Gunners. And there you have it. Those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of all the games that are coming up this weekend in another round of exciting Premier League fixtures to come? What are your own thoughts, comments, opinions, but most of all, of course, what are your predictions on all the games that are coming up this weekend in another round of Premier League encounters? I'd love to hear from you all down below in the comment section on all of that kind of good stuff, and especially your predictions down below in the comment section, because I'm sure it'll make for interesting and great reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things always have to be greatly appreciated, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, this has been another Fletch Premier League predictions video, and I will see you all again soon in a video, live stream, or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Enjoy this weekend's Premier League football. See you all again soon. Take care.